Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to dig into a pretty wild idea. What if, in the complex conflict in the Middle East, the biggest enemies are actually undeclared allies? So this is the big question at the heart of the source material we're looking at. It's asking us to really step back from the daily news cycle and consider something kind of strange. Is there some hidden dynamic here, between Iran, Israel, and Palestine, where the conflict itself actually benefits certain people on all sides? Okay, so to start, the source acknowledges what we all know. This conflict is incredibly complex, right? It's got layers upon layers, but then it pivots pretty quickly. It suggests that maybe, just maybe, the thing that keeps this all going isn't just geopolitics or history, but something a bit more cynical, the self-interest of corrupt elites. And if you're thinking about self-interest, well, the author jumps right into challenging a strategy we see all the time. All that tough talk, the sanctions, the political pressure. The argument here is that this stuff isn't just failing, it's actually backfiring, big time. Yeah, think about the language we hear, stuff like this. The source we're digging into basically says, hold on a second. This kind of supercharged, direct rhetoric, it's actually doing the exact opposite of what it's supposed to. And this is where it gets really interesting. The argument is that instead of weakening hardliners, say in Iran, all this tough talk just hands them a gift. It literally gives them fuel for their fire. It makes their us against the world narrative seem true, which, of course, helps them tighten their grip on power. And it taps into this really long history of public mistrust. Think about things like the 1953 coup. That memory is deep-seated, and this language just brings it all back to the surface. Okay, so this all leads to what is probably the most provocative idea in this entire analysis. It's this claim that sworn enemies can actually end up in this weird dance where they help each other out. Not on purpose, but their actions mutually reinforce their own hardline positions. It's a total paradox, right? The very leaders who are shouting the loudest about being under threat are the ones who benefit the most from making sure that threat never goes away. So how could that possibly work? Well, the source points to a perfect case study. The Iran nuclear deal, also known as the JCPOA. You'll remember this. It was that big 2015 agreement to curb Iran's nuclear program. And what happened around this deal showed a really strange alignment, which brings up a huge question. Why on earth would leaders who call each other mortal enemies both want to kill a deal that was all about de-escalation? And this is the author's answer, something they call a synergistic dynamic. It's a bit of a mouthful, but the idea is simple. For hardliners on both sides, a real lasting peace is actually scarier than their official enemy. Why? Because peace and de-escalation bring something they absolutely hate, demands for transparency and accountability. And if your power is built on conflict and secrecy, well, transparency is the last thing you want. And this timeline, man, it just lays it all out. So check this out. In 2015, the deal gets signed. And what happens inside Iran? The moderates start getting more popular. They start pushing for big reforms like financial transparency, the FATF stuff, so they can get back into the world economy. But then, fast forward to 2018, the US pulls out of the deal. The source argues this was like a rescue mission for Iran's hardliners. All that internal pressure on them, gone. And then in 2020, the assassination of Qasem Soleimani, the text calls that the final nail in the coffin for any hope of moderation. It basically made any real negotiation impossible. So if the tough talk makes things worse and the hardliners are in this weird, beneficial conflict loop, what does that even mean? Well, it brings us to the author's next big idea. What if we've all been looking at the wrong problem? This really puts it in black and white. You've got the common view, often stated by leaders like Netanyahu, that Iran is the head of the snake, the source of all the problems. But then you have the author's view, which is a total flip. They argue that Iran's government isn't the disease itself, it's a symptom of a much older, much deeper wound, the unresolved Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And the thinking here is that as long as that core conflict is left to fester, you're just going to keep getting new offshoots, new resistance groups. The source makes a really bold claim here, that all these different entities, from Saddam's Iraq and Gaddafi's Libya to Hezbollah, Hamas, and yes, even the Islamic Republic of Iran, they're all in their own way byproducts. They're all symptoms of that one single unresolved crisis. Okay, so if that's the diagnosis, that the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is the root disease, then what's the cure? Well, the author walks us through three potential paths forward. This chart really breaks it down nicely. First up, a referendum. The author says, nope, not viable. Too vague, and the demographics kind of predetermine the outcome. Then you've got the two-state solution, which a lot of people talk about. The author sees this as really risky, calling it fire closer to a powder keg if you don't deal with the deep historical trauma first. So, by knocking those two out, the author lands on a third option, a federation. And this is so crucial to the whole idea. The author isn't just talking about a different kind of government or drawing new lines on a map. The absolute core of this proposed federation is about completely eliminating racial, ethnic, and religious supremacy from the system's DNA. It's about building something from the ground up that guarantees equal rights for every single person, no exceptions. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. A single federal state for Israelis and Palestinians? It sounds, well, impossible, right? The author totally gets that skepticism, and they have one last argument to make by looking back at history. I mean, look at these examples. The United States of America. Getting those 13 colonies to unite was a crazy idea back then. The Swiss Confederation, the European Union, for goodness sake. All of these were at one point dismissed as totally unrealistic, pie-in-the-sky fantasies. But they happened, and they created stability. The final point here is that what seems impossible today isn't necessarily impossible tomorrow. History shows us that. And that's really the question that this whole analysis leaves hanging in the air. It's a challenge, really, a challenge to look past this cycle of conflict that feels so permanent and to ask ourselves, could it be that the solutions that seem the most impossible, the most ambitious, are actually the only ones that have a real shot at working?